I'm Clint DeBoer with Pro Tour Reviews, and I'm here with Bradley Berkman, a product manager at Milwaukee Tool, and we're going to talk about battery management and transitioning to battery and service support, all that fun stuff. But I'm excited to hit all these topics, but we got to start somewhere. Do you want to talk maybe about 1,000-foot view of your perspective on basically people looking at going from gas to battery?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for sitting down. Love having these conversations. But, the way we really look at this, we're in the very early stages of transitioning from gas to battery equipment as an industry. If you look at the greater market, the vast majority of blowers, trimmers, chainsaws have really been battery for the past 5 or 7 years now, but that's really been driven by homeowners. And now we're kind of just starting to get into that era of converting professional landscapers to battery.
Yeah, and that's an entirely different kind of user. It's always been odd to me because really the professional user are the ones that I believe would benefit the most because they're the ones that can do the math on converting gas. A homeowner only uses their tools weekly, perhaps a couple times a week, but a landscaper in the professional industry who's doing lawns all day long stands to really gain from transitioning to battery. And so that's a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah, for sure. And, being around a small gas engine for 8 hours a day is not the greatest thing in the world for you. So some of the biggest beneficiaries of going over to battery equipment.
Yeah, anyone who's switched from gas to battery and is gone to, all that time without having to smell those fumes, and vibration is typically lower. There's like a ton of benefits, noise reduction and all of that. What's, in a sense of getting into OP for Milwaukee Tool, what kind of led that decision?
Yeah, so our journey has so many levels here, but if we kind of pick a starting point, it's our 100th year anniversary, so we could go all the way back to 1924, but we'll just start in 2007, make this a little shorter.
There you go.
So, we were some of the first players to introduce lithium-ion to the power tool space. And that really required us to take a big jump from those existing larger NiCad batteries. And, we really started in the indoor trades, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And that's really where we were very well known for lithium-ion tools, was our drills, our drivers, our saws indoors. And, as we continued making more and more solutions on the M18 platform, some of those trades started coming to us and demanding we make battery-powered chainsaws, battery-powered blowers for cleaning up job sites, for taking down power lines. And so that's when we kind of saw, being that user-driven company, there was this huge demand and opportunity for battery-powered outdoor power equipment. And then about 2017 time, we put our chips on the table, slid them forward, and created an entirely new business unit for outdoor power equipment, hired hundreds of engineers, product managers like myself to really say, how do we enter this space in a big way?
I love the visual on that. We're all in. Take it. This is the bet we call. But we were around back in 2008. So dawn of red lithium, getting into brushless tools, that whole transition enabled suddenly these power tools to become as powerful and even more powerful now than corded, because corded runs, it has a finite amount of power it can pull, and brushless, with good battery power can surpass that because it can keep pulling the power it needs to keep things spinning and up to speed. So that's fun to watch. What is Milwaukee's, if you can quantify it somehow, what is your investment in OP right now?
Like we said, it's really that focus on the end user, and so the way we've kind of gone into this space in a big way is to do a couple of different things. Resource the engineering, the regulatory teams, in making sure that we have, the people to build the products and the roadmap we want, but also getting out with users and getting hundreds, thousands of touch points that are, qualitative and quantitative to really define these solutions. So, when we go all in, we say that to mean we go all in understanding the user, and then the solutions come out of that.
That makes sense. Are you seeing any trends right now in the industry, either ones you're trying to address or ones that are just kind of taking a front burner right now?
Yeah, a couple of things really come to mind. For starters, I think when we kind of look at this space high level and start to see professionals go from gas to battery equipment, there are almost two phases that they go through. The first being, are the tools any good? right? We do our best to answer this by getting people hands-on with the tools, by creating content information around, hey, this saw has X horsepower, this is more powerful than a 200cc gas engine, to really help people understand that there's that power and performance in application of battery equipment. But that's really half the story. That's like the step one. Are the tools any good? And then once they get over that step two is, all right, how many batteries do I need to get through my day of work? How many chargers? What does my solution look like that has enough energy for that entire day of work?
Yeah, and as we know from watching these guys out in the field, there's different ways of handling that. Are they going to carry everything they need with them, on the on-site for all day long? Are they going to charge midway through? Are they going to charge overnight? Are they going to, so there's so many different ways. And how have you addressed those various ways with products to solve kind of some of those issues of keeping them up and running?
Yeah, so all those scenarios you listed, all the above, right? In terms of, when we really took a step back and started studying these end users, I kind of talked a little bit about that qualitative and quantitative approach. So on the quantitative side, what we did a couple of years ago was we went out with over 100 landscaping crews, and we put small data loggers on their gas equipment and said, pretend like we're not here. We just want to understand how much you're using your tools from job to job, application to application, but also how much energy you're using in an entire day. And
can I put those on my kids? I mean, if this technology exists, I think it's being underutilized. But go on.
You probably can. And so not just understanding how much energy they're using in an entire day, but across that entire year. And basically, what came out of that was that there's just not a one-size-fits-all solution. There are wildly different energy needs based on the type of properties you're serving, where you have access to power, where you're working in the U.S. And so, we're really big believers that there's not going to be that one solution. And we've got to innovate in a couple of really key areas to make sure that people have that flexibility to build the solutions that give them that all-day runtime.
Yeah, so let's talk about for example, powering on, on site. If you're going to try to run these tools all day long, hand tools in particular, what would be your kind of recommendation, or how do you address that for someone who says that's how we do it, that's our main concern?
Yeah. So, right, like high level, if we kind of want to bucketize these scenarios, you can charge overnight where you just want to get the largest capabilities out of your circuit. You want to maximize, how much you're using your infrastructure, preventing those upgrades. But then that other bucket that you brought up, the on-site charging, where you really want to drive performance, uptime, and productivity. And so, for so many of our users, they kind of, and I don't have to tell you this, but right, like the lifeblood of Milwaukee Tool, batteries, motors, and electronics, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of driving that technology further and further about that performance in application. Our batteries have come such a long way. M18 now has over 10 times the capability that it did back when it launched.
I remember when they were bragging about it being able to put out 20 amps of power on a pack, or it's way over 100 now, I believe. So,
but even back then, right, like the conversation has always been power out, more power out, out. What we miss from that is that now we've also had the opportunity to put a lot more power into the packs. And so for that on-site charging, we've created several innovations with new cells, new electronics, and new chargers that let you turn around those packs really quickly and do it in some of the most extreme environments. So, heat is the enemy of all batteries, right? And you stick a battery on a chainsaw and you do, a 20-inch bucking cut, right? That battery's going to warm up. It's inevitable. The ability to quickly cool down those batteries, charge them quickly, and then have them cool when they're done charging so they're ready for that next discharge is really critical for that on-site charging.
Yeah, and that probably has a lot to do with the cells. It has a lot to do with airflow. It has a lot to do with, how those heat sinks are set up on those packs. I mean, there's a lot involved in that.
Yeah. We say batteries, motors, and electronics. The batteries and motors are pretty straightforward in that, like, people understand them. And electronics is a bit of a gray area, but also an unsung hero. So, like, as I look towards the future, we continue to see batteries getting more powerful, more energy dense, continuing to creep up that spectrum. We continue to see the same thing with motors of smaller, more powerful motors, right? But electronics, there is a huge runway right now of in that medium voltage range, new, smaller, higher powered electronics where kind of our next tools that are coming out in the near future are going to be smaller and more compact than ever.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch motors get shift. I mean, I remember the shift to brushless, and the fact that these motors just suddenly got a lot shorter and smaller and more compact. And it's fun to watch that technology continue to evolve. And of course, batteries have gotten continually denser and denser and more power rich. So yeah, I feel like it's funny. We're so many years in to lithium ion, and I still feel like we're just starting.
Yeah, for sure. And, the great thing is, when I kind of look at battery, I call it the power source of the future. And it's really not just the outdoor power equipment business, not just the power tool business, but if we look at like the global economy, the amount of resources and force behind battery technology right now is really exciting. And I think there's a really long runway of how much more powerful these solutions are going to get.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So when you're trying to convince someone, because sometimes they need convincing, of making a switch from gas to battery, and I have an answer for this in my head, but I want to hear what you think. What would be one tool in the outdoor power equipment landscape that you would have them use that would get them to kind of go, wait a second, there's something to this battery thing?
For us, chainsaws, I mean, the new 20-inch dual battery chainsaw, almost 6 horsepower. People pick this thing up and they are shocked. They're like, I had no idea a battery could do that.
Yeah, see, you would not have been able to say that a couple of years ago. And it's absolutely true. You're right.
Yeah.
I've used it, and these saws are amazing. But yeah, it's funny. I would have said hedge trimmer. That seems to be like the one that kind of almost is a sideways move. It's about the same weight, same power, same runtime as a gas powered tool. But you're right; those chainsaws are monsters now, and they just never were. That wasn't the case before a couple of years ago, where they started really getting that additional capacity and power. So.
Great thing about hedge trimmers too is the energy needs are relatively low. So of all the tools on a trailer, there is no reason you should have a gas hedge trimmer. Huh?
Nope.
You get 2 batteries, you run that thing all day, right? You got no worries with a hedge trimmer.
Yeah, you can run a gas rig. Just put the hedge trimmer. Yeah, at least give that guy a break. Come on, That's funny. This is another big issue that comes up when we talk to landscapers. What is your current method of providing service? Like, how do you address service needs in the field? And obviously, we know battery-powered and brushless tools are, there's no carburetor. You're not choking these things up. There's a lot less moving parts. But there is a need in a sense, maybe even in just a sense of making sure you have somewhere to go. But how do you address that so that people aren't left, without a tool for long and they can keep up and running?
A couple of different ways. So, first from the new product development standpoint, right, like we recognize with gas tools today, generally a large landscaper has someone who's on site in charge of service in their shop, right, who's can change a spark plug or a filter blindfolded. And so there is that desire to be able to service your own equipment. And we really want to build that into our products. So if there are components that need to be changed, they aren't soldered connectors. They're removable push pin connectors, things that users can service themselves for starters. So that's kind of the new product development side. We're striving right now to keep making our tools more and more serviceable for the end users who like to do that.
Yeah, is there a learning curve in taking like existing Milwaukee dealers and getting them up to speed on how to handle outdoor power equipment that's now hitting the market?
Yes and no. We make a lot of content for that kind of channel for people to understand service videos, how-to, things like that. But generally not too much. I mean, what we've learned a lot with kind of the distribution side of things has been dealers who haven't been as attuned to battery-powered outdoor equipment, not being as prepared for the size of the equipment, right? And so being a little more mindful about how they're storing and distributing that equipment.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if, this is a good opportunity for me to just ask, what have we not talked about? What would you like maybe professional landscapers to know that they may not be aware of?
I think it's reasonably daunting for some people to make this conversion from gas to battery. And I think the big message is it can be done, and it can be done easily. And you really just have to be mindful of a couple of different things. And one is really how much you're using your tools. to get a good understanding of how many batteries you might need to get through that full day of work. And this is something where I think our industry has a very long way to go, because if you look at a lot of our competitors, they will give you very aggressive runtime claims of a blower with a big battery that's not kitted with the blower on the lowest power speed, and really kind of upsetting and misleading people about the reputation of how long the products are going to run in application. And so, we do things like create content we call work done, saying with a given tool in this power level, in this application, here's the runtime you're going to get. And it's, of course, field tested. It's very accurate. And so, I think that kind of first step of converting is understanding how much you're really using your tools, getting those accurate runtimes to understand how many battery discharges you need to get through that entire day of work. That's kind of step one for me, is like level set how much energy you're using. Understand that. Once you're there, that's like 90% of the challenge. The rest is then looking, do you have access to power, or how might you recharge all these packs? And so that could come, like we were talking, in a variety of different scenarios. Charging all your batteries overnight, charging them on the go during the day, or charging them on site. And, personally, from my perspective, I'm a very big believer that these scenarios aren't going to go away in the long term.
That makes sense. And to your point, I think when you're talking about things like runtime, which leads up to a question of how many batteries I need and all that, landscapers should really understand the difference between runtime in terms of hours of the day that they're working and trigger time.
Yeah.
That was a huge revelation, I think, for us when we started testing various tools, was just that you don't pull the trigger on these tools at 8 o'clock in the morning and turn it off once for lunch and turn it back on until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. And so for people to understand trigger time means that you're not running that tool quite as long as you think you are. That really does help your math and keeps you from not over anticipating the amount of cost you have and the amount of batteries that you need.
For sure. And, kind of back to that gas data logging that we did, we saw a lot of that of, of course you're outside, you're working hard all day, but the trigger's not always being pulled. You're manually moving things around, you're walking from area to area. So really sometimes you'll hear very big differences between how long someone says they use a tool and how long the data says that they use a tool.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about. We were told the story about a company that's very, forward thinking, and they have all of their equipment, set up for battery already, including, larger equipment as well. And it takes a phenomenal amount of power. And to the point where they had to wait before they could start because they had to bring so much. They had to literally have amps and amps and current, run to their shops because they couldn't handle charging everything they needed to charge. So it does make sense to have that infrastructure ready to think about it. And the fact that you guys have done it essentially on a single 15 amp line enables so much. And of course, you can certainly in a shop space have more than that. So that scalability is a big deal, and it's kind of fun to see that you guys have addressed that.
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, it really plays into the way people are adopting these tools. So I say modular and scalable. Like we talked about, everyone has different energy needs, so these things need to expand and contract, right, to meet those needs. But B, people's journeys are going to change over time. So we want to let people be able to buy into a system that can grow with them over time without having a lot of those pain points.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's really practical.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. So I appreciate it. Bradley, this is a great conversation, and I think super informative. I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate your time, and it's been fun to chat with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. I can tell you this is really just the beginning for where we're going from a power tool perspective, from a portable power perspective. We've got a huge runway of products coming, and I think a very exciting electrified future for the landscaper.
I can't wait to see it.